Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the New Jersey Coastal Resilience Collaborative Full Partnership Meeting. This is our second meeting of the year. We meet biannually. We're happy you all could join us here today. We have a full agenda to get through, so I think we'll get right to the meeting. If you have any questions at any time, you can put them in the chat. We'll be sure to answer them. And with that, let's kick it off. Do I have control of the slides, Laura?
Sorry, no, probably not.
Okay. So again, we're the New Jersey Coastal Resilience Collaborative. We prepared this slide. Laura and I get asked to give presentations about the collaborative from time to time. And so we create this slide to remind us about why we're all here, what we do. The mission of the NJCRC is really we're a professional network established to foster sustainable and resilient coastal communities and ecosystems by generating informed action. We have a somewhat formal structure. We are a community of practice in a sense that operate under a set of procedures and a consensus building framework. And our methods are really to advance science to inform policy and enable community action. So we really sit at the nexus of transferring best practices in science to help inform policy and action for sustained resilience of our coastal communities. That's us in a nutshell. And I think what you'll learn today is that a lot of what we're going to talk about is just those themes. So here's our agenda that Laura had sent out with the meeting invite. I'll put it in the chat if you don't have it. It's a little hard to read here on the slide. But we will start with some new members will introduce themselves. So that's always exciting. We're always happy to have new members join us. And then get into some updates about what the collaborative has been doing since January when we last met, as well as some changes we've made to our operating procedures and structure. And then we have a very exciting guest speaker joining us from Rebuild by Design, Amy Chester, who's going to talk about an initiative they have underway to help garner sustained funding for resilience projects in states. And so with that, I'll move on. I think we have a welcoming from our one of our co-chairs, Ed Mahaney. Ed, would you like to come off mute and say a few words?
Thank you, Tom, and good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the co-chairs, we want to thank you all for making time to be here today. We're just about ready to hit the 50 mark in attendance for today, which is a very good showing. You will note that we are meeting at a different time on a different day today. And is everything all right, Tom? Okay, we are meeting at a different time and a different day today than usual. And please provide feedback in the chat or to Laura and Tom about what you think of that. We're trying to maximize the opportunity for all of our partners to join us on a regular basis. And today, as Tom pointed out, we do have what we feel is an abundant agenda with topics. And I want to thank all of you who were able to join us, and most of you did, for the conference we had in March at Monmouth University, sponsored by the New Jersey CRC and New Jersey DEP for coastal and climate resilience. And that was a great turnout, 300 people, 3 days of active interaction. And it was tremendous amount of information, that especially research information and practical applications, which is what we're looking for, to pass on to all the people who were there. All of us who were there learned something, even the presenters. So that was great, and we're looking to build on that. And as we move forward today, you're going to hear some key points. One is you're going to see that we have new general partners joining us, which is always a good sign for a growing organization. We're going to just briefly review that conference from March, because we're going to join with DEP in having another conference in 2026. And in the interim, in 2025, thanks to Monmouth University's funding, we are going to have some one-day meetings spread throughout the state on the topics that are pertaining to this collaborative. We also want to bring you up to date on our leadership retreat, in which we have firmed up how we're going to further reorganize and restructure as a growing organization. And you do have some handouts today. One of them is the transition from the leadership committee to a board of directors, and the opportunity for more people to get involved on the work groups, the board of directors, and then into leadership positions as co-chairs. And we really have a well-rounded group of people from the public and private sector involved in this organization, and we want to continue to build that. We have put near the end of the agenda, and I think we did it as an intent to make certain that everybody understood where this organization is going, especially with the encouragement and motivation from New Jersey DEP. And so we will get our usual update from Nick Angarone, and he has some very important information to disclose to us regarding upcoming releases from the department on regulations. And then our featured speaker, Amy Chester, whom I've had the pleasure of hearing twice before, and I want to hear it again today. She's the managing director of Rebuild by Design, and she's going to talk about trying to establish a permanent funding source in New Jersey for resilience, and also listen to her presentation on the data sets that they have collected to justify this. It is very impressive. So thank you very much, and I look forward to a great meeting. And Tom, I'll throw it back to you.
Thank you, Ed. I'm going to throw it right to Laura to welcome our new partners.
Thank you, Tom and Ed. So just a little clarification. I'm just going to welcome our new partners who have joined us since last January. If any of them are present and are interested, they're welcome to give an update at the end of the meeting. If we have time, we have some partners giving updates. But I just wanted to give a shout out to all of the new partners, because we did have quite a few different organizations sign on since January. We've got New Jersey planning officials. I saw Jason Kassler is on the meeting, and I apologize, I don't know everybody who's on the meeting. I did see from Kevin Doms from Biohabitats is here. Michelle Langa is the representative for Hackensack Riverkeeper. Nick Brown, who had been with ACT Engineering, moved over to HDR, and now HDR has signed on as a general partner as well. Jim Rotella, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, from Rotella Associates. They have signed on, as well as CME Associates with Drew Pavlik and Doug Romeyer as their representatives. And then now officially Rutgers has been a resource affiliate, but now the New Jersey Climate Change Resource Center from Rutgers University has officially signed on as a general partner as well, with Lisa Auermuller as their representative. So we're always eager to, as Ed said, be growing the partnership. It means that we're reaching more people, and we hope to engage all of our partners. We hope that you'll all engage in our work groups and even consider building new work groups, and we'll come around to that a little bit later. So just a welcome, and if anybody is on and wants to say hello towards the end of the meeting, we invite you to do so, or put it in the chat like I see Kevin has done. Thank you, Kevin. Also, just a reminder, if you haven't introduced yourself already, please do so, just who you are in the chat. Yes, I think that was all I wanted to say there. So we're gonna move on. We're just gonna do a quick recap again. Ed gave you some of the highlights of our conference, and I know many of you were at our conference. It was such an incredible success. It was a 3-day conference that we held from March 12th to 14th at Monmouth University. Monmouth University sponsored a whole lot of this conference and made it happen. I should say it was a joint conference with DEP. This was not just an NJCRC effort. It was a joint effort with NJDEP. We hosted approximately 280 people. there's all these little statistics up there: 6 plenary sessions, 4 concurrent tracks, a total of 20 breakout sessions, 144 speakers, 1 field trip. We had so many phenomenal volunteers from within the collaborative as well as DEP that organized all of this. And it was really very, very successful. We sent out post-conference surveys as well to gather feedback, which we will be using as we move forward. If you weren't there, or you were there and there was a presentation that we're hoping to maybe gather some further information from their slides, we have a selection of presentations on the NJCRC website. I can't promise that every single one is there, but many of them are. And there is the web address in case you don't have it. And then this is just again, a sample of all of the different types of sessions that we held. We had many sessions that were based off of our work groups that were looking for feedback, so that they can better move into the future with their work plans, but also have an understanding of what our community needs and wants. So again, all of this is on the website if you're interested in seeing more, but we put a lot of work into this and it happened really quickly. So I just shared one of the best quotes that I heard about the conference. I'm being a little selfish. One of the best conferences in the region in quite a long time. I just thought that was one of the best compliments for us and the entire team that pulled it together. Special shout outs to Terry Doss and Ashley Connor from DEP, because they were really, really did so much work to make this conference happen. I don't want to give away, but as Ed said, and we'll talk about it a little bit more, it was such a success. We are looking towards doing more events in the future, but more to come on that in a little bit. And now I'm passing it back to Tom. Oh, you're muted. I can try to.
There we go. Thank you, Laura. So just a little bit of what we've been doing in the leadership of the Coastal Resilience Collaborative over the last 6 months. One of the things that is called out in our operating procedures is for all of our work groups to prepare an annual work plan. We thought that was a little onerous, so we made it a biannual work plan. So it's a 2-year work plan that's approved, it's submitted to and approved by the board of directors to make sure that the work groups are doing or proposing to do aligns with the goals and objectives of the collaborative as a whole. So you should have received in your invitation to the meeting the biennial work plan of the collaborative. We basically have taken all of the work group work plans and overlaid it into one package, which includes an overview of the overall objectives of the collaborative for the next 2 years. So that's something we'll do continuously moving forward. And it's at this July meeting that we will truly present the new work plan, and the work plan year starts July 1 and ends June 30th. So we're kind of on a fiscal year work plan in that sense. So if you had a chance to take a look at it, you could see what we're doing. If you haven't had a chance yet, please do. You may find some interesting things that you'd like to get engaged with. All of our work groups are always welcoming new members, so please take a look at that biennial work plan. The second thing we did as collaborative leadership was to take a hard look at our existing collaborative structure and operating procedures document. This document is up on our Basecamp page, so if you ever are interested in looking at that, you can find it on our Basecamp. We also sent the revised operating procedures and structure out with the meeting invite. And really the changes were to make the operations of the collaborative a little more seamless. So there were certain things in the original documents, for instance, that didn't really explicitly state how long a board of director member stays on, what are their term limits, how do we go about electing and choosing new board of director members, how are the co-chairs selected, and how long do they serve in their positions. And so the changes we made are very much truly operational to make everything we do more explicit and defined in terms of partners coming in and out of leadership positions, how long they stay, how you become a co-chair. So it's all in these new operating procedures. And so if you're interested in learning more about how we operate, please look at those documents to get a sense. And they're not too long. I think the structure and operating procedures take up about 30 pages in total. So that's what we're going to go forward with starting today at this meeting. And so part of that change is a transfer in title from what we used to call our leadership committee into a board of directors. And so when we made these changes, we thought that the leadership committee members really are doing a lot more than just meeting as a group to advise us. They're actually guiding the work of the collaborative. And in that sense, we thought it would be better to establish them as a board instead of a committee. And so, Laura, if you go to the next slide, we can take a look. The current board members also went out in the packet. We are structured right now. We have 3 co-chairs that are selected from the members of the board of directors, and they all have staggered terms. So you can see this term. So one co-chair will be stepping down each year or be up for renewal each year. And so basically the co-chairs should technically rotate through every 3 years. The co-chairs, as I mentioned, are selected by the board at large, and we currently have 11 board of directors. The board of directors broadly reflect the makeup of the partnership that's within our operating procedures, that the board should reflect our membership, and we are a blend of academic, county and state government, nonprofit and for-profit members. And so the board is structured with terms that should keep that blend of representation throughout the course of the board's existence. So you'll see that every 3 years, again, a third of the board will be coming off or up for re-election. And so, again, there's this rotation of members so that we can have participation from as broad a representation of the partnership as we can. So we also, the next slide shows, in addition to the board at large, we do, within our operating procedures, call out that every work group chair is also a member of the board. And so right now we have 7 work groups that are working on different aspects. You'll learn a lot more about that soon. And so there are 7 chairs, and they also meet with the board every 2 months. So the board meets every 2 months, co-chairs meet every month, and that's how the organization moves forward. We have 2 ex officio members. These are for the DEP. The collaborative got its start in partnership with the Department of Environmental Protection after Sandy, and has grown and evolved over time, but the DEP presence is important to the collaborative as a whole. So right now, Nick Angeron and Becky Hill are the ex officio members for the DEP, and they serve as long as they like. And then Laura and I and Jin Cheng from Keene University are the managing directors of the collaborative. So it's a quick, broad overview of what we've been doing at the leadership level. If anybody has any questions about any of that, please feel free to come off mute and ask it now, or put the question in the chat. Be happy to respond to any questions you have. Okay. All right. Okay, so Mayor Mahoney had mentioned that our funding for the coming year, we have, over the last 5 or 6 years, have had different funding sources at different times. Some of the funds have come through the Coastal Management Program. This past year, we were funded through NOAA, through the Sea Grant program, through a special call for coastal resilience projects. And so we were able to successfully get a year's worth of funding through the National Sea Grant Office for 2024. In 2025, we'll be leveraging funds that we have at Monmouth University to work with communities to build coastal resilience. And those funds will support some more engagement with Amanda Archer, NJCRC, who runs our coffee chats. So we put in support to help maintain the coffee chats and make sure that that's working well for us. We also have some additional funds for communications and for printing. Many of our work group chairs have said they'd love to print fact sheets and some reports. And so we have set aside some funds to make sure we can do some printing for them, as well as funds for the managing directors. And more importantly, as Ed had mentioned, we do have funding to support 3 smaller workshops in 2025. Nothing as large as the conference we had last March, but these workshops will be focused. We're thinking of a coastal resilience flooding oriented conference, probably in Central or North Jersey, a habitat restoration and adaptation conference, primarily in South Jersey at some point in 2025. And then we set aside money for our municipal work group to plan a session at the 2025 League of Municipalities meeting to highlight how communities are engaging with the Coastal Resilience Collaborative and leveraging our work to help them. So we're really excited about those upcoming events. We will be establishing some planning committees for those. So if you're interested in becoming part of a planning committee, please let us know. We'd be happy to have the help because it does take significant effort to plan and host these events. So I think that's it. Did I miss anything, Laura?
I don't think so. I think our agenda all kind of, everybody's folding on top of each other, talking about different things. So I'm gonna talk about the leadership retreat. Maybe we could have done this in a better order, but some of what Tom just talked about is some of what we talked about in the leadership retreat that we held back in May. So we just wanted to fill you guys in on a couple of the details that came out of the leadership retreat. So as we've been explaining to you, there's been all of this work going on to sort out how do we rotate in new co-chairs, how are we going to fund the things that we want to do in the future, what are the things that we want to be doing in the future, what are the things our work groups want to be doing in the future, as well as how do we just keep this machine running and moving forward as slowly as, or as quickly as possible, smoothly, that's the word I was looking for, as smoothly as possible. So we were creating the biannual work plans, updating the operating procedures, and working on creating this new board of directors. And our leadership was engaged in all of that on a regular basis, either through emails or during their regular quarterly meetings. But we felt like we were at a point where we really needed to bring everybody together and just really kind of hash out the last details so that we were all on the same page. So on May 10th of just last month, we brought everybody together. JCNR sponsored the location. TNC sponsored some breakfast and lunch because we were going to be there for several hours. So we were appreciative to them for that. One of the first coolest kind of things that came out of it, I just have to say, because I'm really proud of our work groups and all of the great work they did or do. But one of the things that came up when we were talking with work group leads is that they wanted to have a meeting all together. So we were having this leadership retreat already, and they together decided they wanted to meet before the leadership retreat, which meant getting there really early. And some of us had to travel multiple hours to get there. So just really a great shout out to them for being as engaged in the work that they're doing and in the NJCRC. So for an hour, our work group leads had their very own meeting, talking about how they can work with each other. One of those you'll learn about more is the field site visit work group, because that was a common theme for our work groups, is that they would like to host field site visits. But they are now inspired and they're going to be meeting on a quarterly basis. So if you decide that there is a work group that you want to be engaged with or create a new work group, I just want you to know that you would be entering in with a very engaged set of people working in this field. So just wanted to let everybody know that it's happening, or did happen, and will be happening again on a quarterly basis. Those work group leads will be meeting together. Two of the themes for the leadership retreat were really, what do we want to be doing? How do we do that? And how do we fund the NJCRC and the things that we want to do? As Tom discussed, the 2025 events, 3 of them were one of the priorities that came out of the discussion. So you will be seeing more information as we move those events forward. Another item of discussion was the 2026 conference. We knew 2024 was a success. We knew that we couldn't do it every year. So we are planning on trying to do this joint event on a biennial basis with the NJDEP. Part of the discussion is we are hoping to be moving to a larger venue. We're working on the funding issues and contracting issues that come all along with that. And that leads to the big financial question. NJCRC is not a nonprofit. We are a community of practice of sorts. We are a really motivated group of partners that have agreed to come together and do this work. As we learned from the conference, it's difficult without having a bank account and a financial structure. So it was decided at the meeting that we were going to create a financial committee that's going to look at where we want to go in the future. We're investigating different options like fiscal sponsorships, the potential for becoming a 501c3 in the future. We all have our hats that we wear in our resilience field. Very few of us are have backgrounds in this nonprofit or fiscal world. So we are looking for volunteers. If you have an interest in participating on the financial committee, I would hope that you would send me an email, or you can message me or put something in the chat. But we are moving the financial committee forward as quickly as possible, because we know we need to have some kind of stronger fiscal structure to move all of our goals forward. That includes the printing of white papers and fact sheets, as well as having these events and doing site visits. So just really exciting things on the horizon. So if you'd like to be a part of that aspect of it, we also hope that you will reach out and volunteer. I think we're going to move over to our work groups. We're going to let Tom take over.
Yeah. So we have 3 new work groups that were established in the past 6 months. The first was an exciting one. Many of our work groups that are focused on adaptation and restoration, like Beneficial Use Learning Network, the CHARM work group, the Ecological Restoration and Science work group, all have a desire to go out and visit sites and see projects and how they're working and evolved. And so we're very happy that Mike Galvin from JMT stepped up and suggested we create a field site visit work group that could help these work groups coordinate a visit. And so it takes a little bit of the burden off the chairs of the existing work groups, and Mike can help them plan and actually go out and see sites. So really happy that Mike stepped up to help us do that. And I think they're well underway of planning a few site visits right now. The second one is there's a couple of things coming out that many of you may have heard, that the NJPAC rules for the coastal zone, the real rules have come out. They should be listed in the register in early July, but there is a courtesy copy available right now in advance of those rules being put out for public comment. We have stood up a work group to look at those rules and submit comments on behalf of the CRC. And so Tony McDonald is leading that work group. If you have an interest in joining that work group and reviewing those rules and working on some comments, please reach out to Laura or I or June and let us know. We'll make sure you're connected to Tony in that group. We also know that the state redevelopment plan It's a little bit on hold right now, but it was coming out for public comment. And so the state redevelopment plan and those real rules are really connected. So we have work groups that's focused on looking at that state redevelopment plan and providing comments to that as well. And that group is being led by Liz Simple. And again, if you are interested in joining that group, please let Laura, June, or I know, and we'll make sure to connect you with Liz. So that's our new work groups. Very excited to have them formed and working. And now we'll hear from some of our existing work groups. So I think Amanda Archer is going to tell us about the Coffee Chat work group and what they're planning to do.
Wow, Tom, you are right on time with the agenda. So hey everyone, my name is Amanda Archer and I lead the Technical Assistance Coffee Chat Planning Work Group. Just to give a little bit of an update, we do have a coffee chat planned for tomorrow at 11 a.m. If you're interested in participating, it's on the NJ Restoration Tool Organization Suite. And it hosts a suite of habitat restoration planning tools in the form of an organized roadmap that takes you from location identification to restoration approaches. So we have folks from Rutgers University, the Nature Conservancy, and also ACT Engineers, who is going to go through a site level project planning demo using NJ Restores. So if you'd like to join us, the QR code is on the screen, and I'll also throw the registration link in the chat for anybody who would like to join us. And as always, the Technical Assistance Coffee Chat work group is seeking participation in the work group. So if you're interested in helping plan these, we usually do it bi-monthly. Please reach out to Laura and she'll get us connected, and we meet bi-monthly, and then on off months is when we host the coffee chats. So about once a month of time is how much we put into it. And then secondly, I do have a poll that I will put in the chat. And here's the link. Sorry, it's in a long link form, but the Google Doc at the bottom is the coffee chat poll. If you click that link, we're just looking for information on what to provide for the fall and winter of 2024 in our coffee chats. So what would you like to see in a technical assistance coffee chat this upcoming fall and winter? We have options between Resilience Award implementation, potentially NJ Pact Real before the comments are due, resilience permitting, FEMA CRS program related guidance, or resilience funding opportunities. And we know these are all really great topics that people want to see, but we want to see what is timely for all of you in the work that you do. So if you could please respond to that. And if any of you can provide expert information on one or more of the topics listed in that poll, just put your contact information so that we can reach out to you. And then my last update is that the NJCRC Technical Assistance Directory update is going to be launched with a new website, which Carl will talk to you in a moment about. But we just want to know, did your organization provide an update? And if not, or if you want to be added to the Technical Assistance Directory, the survey link is on that Google poll form. We just want to make sure it gets out timely with the website update, so we don't have to go back and update it. So if you can provide an update before we do that, that would be really helpful for us. So thank you. That's all I got.
Great, thank you, Amanda. Now we'll hear from Carl Villacova, who's the Communications and Outreach Work Group Lead.
Hey, everybody, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. Yeah, so our newly expanded communications work group had its first meeting just a few days ago. It was a good and productive conversation on what the immediate needs were for getting the CRC's word out further and faster. We feel like we've made some good headway in terms of building the audience for the digital newsletter, but that does only come out a couple of times a year. So the question becomes, how can we share our updates in between all those times while, at the same time widening our reach to new people. And to that end, we will be starting up Facebook and LinkedIn pages for the CRC very soon, and may dip our toes into other social platforms a little bit later. And as much as there'll be tools for sharing the CRC's news, we're also looking at these as a means for amplifying all of you, the partners. So we'll be following all of your accounts, and hopefully you'll follow us back if you have any hand in your social media accounts, and boosting any coastal resilience content that you're putting out. We welcome you to send us any items that you'd like us to share as well. We also discussed the creation of a toolkit with communications assets for partners to use. It may include items like a proud to be a partner of NJCRC icon that people can add to their websites, overview fact sheets and PowerPoint templates, a branded QR code that includes the CRC logo in it, and some other items, some of which exist and others which need to be created. On another note, as Amanda teed up, the developer is pretty far along on the new website, and we're expecting it to be published imminently this month and likely over the next few days. Once that happens, we'll need to test everything thoroughly, look it over closely, and make any kinds of final edits and changes that kind of just come up anytime you roll out a new website and notice the things that you've looked at 1,000 times and never really occurred to you. And we would love your help with that. So we'll let you know when it's live and welcome any thoughts or suggestions that you do have. And finally, just echoing what Tom said earlier, welcome any new members to the work group, and just let us know if you'd like to join. And if you have any questions for me now.
Okay, thank you, Carl. Like I said, if anybody has any questions at any time, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll respond. So thank you both. Thank you for those updates. Next we have an update from our NJDEP partners, Nick Angarone, Chief Climate Resilience Officer of the DEP. Nick, you want to come off mute and make any comments?
Afternoon, everybody. You can hear me?
Yes.
Most of my updates hopefully are not actually a surprise for you. As Tom stole my thunder a little bit, I assume have all seen that the NJ Pact real rules are forthcoming. They've not yet officially been proposed from a kind of administrative procedures process, but as Tom noted, there's a website with a copy of what is expected to be proposed soon. But I think we are still looking at a date in July when you will see those officially in the New Jersey Register, starting a public comment period. I'm happy to go into detail at another time as to some of the major provisions of those regs. Also, I assume you've seen some headlines at least about a proposed modification to the threatened endangered species rules. Among other things, the bald eagle is being delisted. There's many other points in there, but I think it's something else that would be particularly of interest to this group. Third, this is about 2 months old at this point, but feels particularly germane considering the impending heat wave. The New Jersey Interagency Council on Climate Resilience released a draft resilience action plan on extreme heat back on Earth Day. The public comment period has technically ended for review of that, but we are always willing to kind of consider feedback from the public and our stakeholders. We're, I believe, expecting to finalize and release that document also in July. I will note that similar to some of the smaller summit conference type events that Tom referenced. We are similarly working on a series of small half-day, I believe, events specifically around heat and extreme heat in New Jersey. And you'll see some of those, you'll start seeing those roll out, I believe, this fall, and probably go out about a year from now. So those are my primary updates. I am happy, Laura and Tom, to transition to introducing Amy if you are ready for that.
I don't see Amy on yet. Amy, if you are here and I'm not seeing you, let us know. She did tell us she'd be hopping on right at 3:15 because she had another conflict. Maybe if anybody has a question, would you be willing to answer a question?
Yeah, I'm willing to do that.
Does anybody have a question for Nick or us or any of the work group leads that might be here? Co-chairs?
This is when we need Tony here, Nick.
To ask me tough questions.
Did
Yeah,
I
I
see
did
a
see,
hand?
it was Nick
Yep.
Brown. Yeah, I just saw Nick raise his hand. Nick, you want to come off mute and ask me?
Yeah, sure. Nick, could you give us a really, really high level overview of the changes in the NJ Reel?
Yeah, so I'll touch on some of the, I think, major points of the regs, right? So they are largely focused on the coastal zone, though not entirely. I think some of the biggest things you'll see in there, right, is that it looks at the impacts of sea level rise out through 2100, and so incorporates the best available science we have specific to New Jersey in some of the provisions of those regs. In particular, there is an adjustment to the coastal flood hazard areas that effectively adds sea level rise to the FEMA 1% storm extent. All right, so that's adding 5 feet of sea level rise to that store, the firm mapping, simply based around kind of 5 feet of sea level rise, period, and the areas that will be inundated by sea level rise. The rules will now identify a inundation risk zone that is focused particularly on residential development and critical infrastructure that is proposed for development in those areas. There are water quality changes. There are changes to the rules to encourage nature-based solutions, support renewable energy, particularly offshore wind. Right, there's a specific focus on ensuring that the changes to our regs bring us into closer alignment with the FEMA National Flood Insurance Program, particularly in the flood hazard areas. There are changes to kind of permitting, the permitting processes. So there's, it is an extremely, it's an extremely long document. I believe I was told that it is the longest rule that the department has ever proposed, over 1,000 pages. I do not envy any of you who, maybe I shouldn't say this, Tom, before you get your volunteers for the work group. But I do think kind of hearing from you all, right, who work in this space every day and is going to be critically important to the department. The way the rule process works is, right, once the rules are formally proposed, there's a public hearing, public comment period, which I believe will be 90 days. And then the department is required to respond to every one of the comments that are submitted and adopt within a year. So I think considering the length of that document and the full extent of comments that we are expecting, you know, we're likely to need the full amount of time to do that response document.
That was the perfect filler because Amy is here. Thanks, Nick.
All right, shall I move into that introduction? Yes,
please.
okay. Joining us is Amy Chester with Rebuild by Design. Amy is going to talk to you about a report they have coming out specifically about disaster declarations in New Jersey. I don't want to steal any of her thunder, but we'll also note that she's also going to talk a little bit about the need for a permanent funding source for resilience and adaptation in New Jersey. And I think, again, as practitioners in this space, you more than anyone are aware of the critical need for a stable New Jersey funding source, right? We are all either cooperating or competing with each other to, you know, apply for the same amount of same programs for federal funding and even in some cases state funding. I will echo kind of the need for that stable funding source. Exactly how it gets applied and what it looks like and how that all comes together, I think is very much to be determined. But I think kind of the gist of the need of this is not something that we necessarily need to convince folks here about. So with that, since we're running a few minutes behind, I will turn it over to Amy and just express my appreciation again for her moving this conversation forward.
Thank you all. It's super nice. And I think we're 3 minutes early or 4 minutes early, and I love an early meeting. So that is perfect. So happy to be with you today. I want to make sure I can share my screen. Looks like I'm going to have no problem. So thank you. I'm sure that some of you might have heard about this before, or maybe have seen me present it in the past 2 weeks or so. So I apologize, but what you're really doing is memorizing it. And that is the most important thing here, is to actually take this data and internalize it and use this data, because I think that it communicates really strongly for New Jersey that climate change is here. It's no longer something that we have to think about for the future. It's our responsibility. It's our elected officials' responsibility. It's societal's responsibility to start thinking about adaptation now. And I'm not sure if everyone is familiar with Rebuild, but Rebuild by Design was begun after Hurricane Sandy, now 11 years ago. Can hardly believe it. And we think of ourselves as a process that brings together local and global expertise to solve issues that are usually around infrastructure and climate adaptation. And we do that in 3 ways. The first is the regional large-scale design competitions, which we did with New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut, and then in the Bay Area a few years later. We do processes with local governments and local communities to kind of uncover a solution to a project. That might be a physical project, it might be a policy issue, almost always exclusively connected to climate change, and then research and policy, which is what we're talking about here. And we've done this locally, nationally, and internationally. I think a lot of people know us for our local work, but we've been spending the past 10 years working in many, many other places. And our beginning was the Hurricane Sandy design competition. And this is something that President Obama's Hurricane Sandy task force launched. And in just a short period of time, we worked with 10 different design teams around the region and over 500 community organizations, over 180 government entities, to think about infrastructure in a different way that had been done before. And out of that, I think you're pretty familiar with some of the projects. We started out, or I should say, we ended the design competition with $930 million from the federal government in 7 projects. And those projects have continued to grow, and they have about $4.3 billion in them now. And the ones that you're probably most familiar with is what's happening in Hoboken and in the Meadowlands, which has continued to call them the Rebuild by Design projects, which is different than other in other locations that even in New York City, they actually rename the project. So we end up being in the paper all the time for things that actually aren't directly us, but we inspired it many years ago. And this is a very simple map that we created in 2019. After spending a lot of time working in other communities, I became very interested in understanding what was happening in New York State. We knew, very firsthandly of what was happening in New York City and New Jersey and Connecticut and kind of the shorefront communities, but was really surprised to see that New York State was having a lot of flooding. In this case, we mapped both state and federal disaster declarations between 2011 and 2019, which was during the tenure of our governor at the time. So we basically took this map to Governor Cuomo and we said, look what's happening on your watch. Here's what you can do about it. And he then, after not that many months, but a tremendous amount of work from a lot of people, he proposed a $3 billion bond act. And that was put on the ballot in just before lockdown, actually in January of 2020. And then it was later taken off the ballot when we were having our state was having some issues with President Trump, and then it was put back on the ballot by our new governor, and then she raised it to $4.2 billion. And New York State voters voted for this in 2022 at a percentage that was higher than our governor even got in terms of votes. So almost 70% of New Yorkers voted for this. And as soon as we realized that a very simple map could tell a really passionate and impactful story, we started thinking about how we could do this in many, many other different places. And we partnered with iParametrics and Aptum, who was able to get the data that we got through literally calling out press releases to getting it in a different way, because they're FEMA contractors, and they were able to help us create the same map for the entirety of the US. So this is what it looks like for 2011 to 2021. We put this out in November of 2022. And you can see that most counties in most counties in the US are actually dealing with these issues just as we are, whether they're urban or rural, Republican or Democrat, coastal or riverine. And that we actually found that 90% of US counties had a federal disaster declaration for an extreme weather event during that time. So 90%, we were shocked by this. I still am shocked by this, honestly, and just can't believe it. And to me, this is really the change between climate change is coming and climate change is here. We are all suffering, and we think that we're doing it alone. And of course, it's not just the immediate impact of one of these events, it's also the long-term impacts. And I have family that suffered through Hurricane Sandy. I have a friend who lost her home. And those impacts do not go away when those FEMA dollars go away. And we really don't understand all of the mental health and physical health impacts that are happening because of these disasters. This is what the US looks like of where FEMA is putting their dollars after events, which isn't necessarily the places that are the most vulnerable, with like physically or socially vulnerable. A lot of times it ends up being in the places that are most expensive to build back what was there before. This is the energy reliability for the whole US. And we created these packets that you can download that are on our website. And I'm going to show you the New Jersey packet, but we actually are updating it and adding a lot of more information. And we might be releasing it either this week or next week. So just hold on and please don't take any screenshots yet. You can have this data in a number of days. But what we found is just like New York, every single county had 5 or more disaster declarations, and New Jersey had 13 between 2011 and 2021. You've had 1 since then in Warren County, and that most of the events were due to storms and flooding. And storms and flooding tend to be the climate disasters that are the most costliest and have the most kind of physical damage. I should add that we're about to go into a heat wave right now, and heat waves do not get federal disaster declarations because they do not have an economic impact. They only have a mortality impact. So they don't actually show up in data like this. And then 50% of all counties in New Jersey had 7 or more disasters, with Morris County being the highest. And this is where New Jersey ranks among the other states. So 13 disasters is tied for Missouri and Kansas and the Dakotas. And however, New Jersey has a very high per capita rate. And I assume that it's because it's expensive to build in New Jersey, like it's expensive to rebuild in New York. So the information that we're going to put out this week is going to have a lot of statistics and images, because we want it to be a one-stop shop for you to kind of, whenever you need to know something, or like put it in a press release or lobby with it or whatever you need to do, we wanted to make sure that it's all there for you to use. And this is what the packet looks like. On the right hand, you have a number of of statistics, some of which you'll see in the coming pages. A couple of things to note is that the Association of Civil Engineering gives New Jersey's infrastructure a D+ rating. You can just see it here, and some of this will be able to go in the next pages. So on the left-hand side is that equivalent map that we did for New York, for New Jersey, showing the 13 different disaster declarations. On the right-hand side, we took the FEMA dollars that are created for counties, and for the state, not for the individual assistance, but for the hazard mitigation and the public assistance. We've mapped that, and then we added to HUD's dollars, and New Jersey has gotten $7.2 billion in the past, or during those years. So that's $7.2 billion that's coming from all of our pockets. Our state representatives tend to say, oh, well, that's the federal government money. No, it's all of our money. This is all tax dollars. And on the left-hand side, you can see the social vulnerability index that's mapped with the energy reliability index. And we all know that the areas or the people that are most socially vulnerable really fare the worst during these storms, and especially without energy. And then we've decided to kind of be a bit more provocative and ask ourselves, well, if we were thinking about where we might put the disaster dollars before disaster instead of after disaster to have the biggest social return on investment, what is the data that we would be looking at? And the map on the left-hand side has about 10 different data sources that are listed on the bottom. The yellow is Superfund sites, the blue is wastewater discharge sites. And then we condensed all of these sources to a simple graph on the right-hand side that can help us figure out where the places that have the biggest vulnerability on social side. So we have a number of different climate risks in here. We have a number of different types of health risks in here. And you can see that when you start looking at it through this lens, Ocean County pops right out. And we did the same for every single state, and kind of put it out there that this may not be what works in your state, and that's okay. But the idea is that we should be thinking about what are the data that we need to know so our dollars can go the furthest for the people that need it the most. And then what we're really excited about releasing this week are the legislative districts. And we're putting these out. I'm sorry, it's a little bit blurry, but we're putting these out because we really want legislators to be able to see that they're in it together. It's not necessarily just the coastal communities that are suffering from climate events. It's actually a lot of riverine communities too. And we want the legislative, our elected officials to work with each other to try and solve these problems across party lines. We want to put this in the hands of activists and organizers and lobbyists so they can come and say, hey, this is what's going on. For candidates, whether they're sitting in office or running for office, either way, they could be talking about what impacts climate is having in their communities. And then we publish the data. And this is just a kind of a zoom in on the top of it. It has the years, and it has exactly what type of weather events that New Jersey has experienced. These numbers here are the FEMA numbers that they attach to a disaster. And then we have the county names going down the left and the number of climate disasters, and then going all the way kind of over to the right. And then what we're proposing as part of this work, and what we would love to work with you on, is figuring out what's the right funding source for New Jersey. New Jersey is doing an enormous amount of planning. The work is incredible that you are all doing, but there's not that same level to meet it as implementation availability of resources. So we are asking state governments to kind of pony up some dollars And two ways that we are proposing it is either a ballot measure like we did in New York, or a surcharge on certain types of property and casualty insurance. This is a chart that shows that voters, no matter where they are actually voting for these ballot initiatives. So we don't have to be scared that people in our state do not feel like it's needed. It actually, people are voting for this pretty substantially, regardless where they live. And in terms of an insurance surcharge, we are proposing that we take certain types of property and casualty insurance. So essentially taking the big list of property and casualty insurance and taking out medical malpractice and workers' compensation because it doesn't have a connection to these climate disasters. And then adding a 2% surcharge on it if you bond against it. So if you basically take all that money and then borrow against it through municipal bonding, New Jersey can raise $9.1 billion in 10 years. It is an enormous number. It's a number bigger than what anybody else is proposing that could support this. And we like it because there is a policy connection to insurance. Right now, all of our insurance rates are going up, but we're not getting anything for it. If we actually were able to say, okay, we'll pay an extra, what comes out to New York, like $2 a month, and we actually get something for it, which will lower our insurance rates, then it becomes an investment. It's not something that just kind of leaving our pocketbooks. And that nationwide, we could raise almost $300 billion in 10 years doing a similar surcharge. And there's actually, there are bills that are in state legislatures in a couple of different places that we are looking at for different ways that they are, that they're thinking about leveraging dollars to support climate infrastructure. And we want to work with you. So this is a code where you can see a job announcement for a part-time person that we want to hire in New Jersey. So if you know any great, incredible people that are looking for picking up a couple of hours work, maybe about 20 hours a week, we would love to have them part of the Rebuild team and to work on this. So we would love to help with you use this information in any way you possibly, can. We will sit with you and kind of go into the details if that is helpful to you. And we want to figure out how to develop a very strategic and targeted campaign, similar to what we did in New York, but of course, in the way that you do it in New Jersey, which will always be different. And thinking about, who we should be working with, who are the business leaders, the labor leaders, and what are the things that we could be doing together. So thank you very much. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Amy. There's a lot there, and we have time for a few questions. So anybody wants to ask Amy a question about that analysis or resilience in general?
Who wants to work with us on this? We will email the link. Thank you. I see Lisa has her hand up.
Yeah.
Oh.
Thanks so much, Amy. Maybe my question is a little naive, but I've always thought of Rebuild by Design as sort of like a HUD branded thing. And so the fact that you are expanding out beyond the HUD funded projects that I'm used to with Sandy, could you tell me a little bit more about how the group is actually funded and set up and like what your model is?
Yeah, so we
Okay,
actually were never funded through HUD. We were always funded through philanthropy.
Okay.
And we had a partnership with HUD for the Hurricane Sandy design competition, which was in 2013 and 2014. And then since then, we've been part of NYU. We sit at NYU's Institute for Public Knowledge and have been working, since then in many, many, many different places. We are mostly philanthropically funded, but we do get state funding from this from New York State, and we have gotten other city funding from time to time. The work that we're doing here in New Jersey, I can tell you, is funded through the Siegel Family Foundation, Tepper Foundation, and Rockefeller Brothers Fund that have been supporting our Atlas of Disaster now for quite some time.
Stan?
Great presentation. Thank you very much. I'm curious. I think everybody on this call who works in Ocean County probably has a few ideas of some of its risks. what made Ocean County stand out so much from the rest of the state?
For the purple map,
Yes, for
let's,
its compounding risks.
yeah, let's look together. Wait, let me get it back up 1 second. Mm. So Ocean County has high population density, has had high percent of population change. So it's more than average. People are moving there. They have high health risks, and I can look up in our data of which type of health risks that it has. It has 6 different types of climate risk and is susceptible to sea level rise.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Anybody else want to look up their county kind of on the red map? Is that
I think what's interesting is, when you look at this question, and almost regardless of what criteria you use, Ocean County tends to rank extremely high. Right? If you look at like FEMA's National Risk Index, for example, right, they're one of a couple counties in New Jersey that score very highly. And again, they look at some different data as well.
Sure.
And I think a lot of that ends up being kind of the significant amount of coastline, but also the kind of the significant amount of development and the kind of the both, you have the kind of the high value of potential impact to that property, but also areas of social vulnerability. So Ocean County is always kind of like the one that's kind of blinking out there for me.
Well, we know it has one of the oldest median ages of any county in the US. And
Wow.
it also has the highest percentage of people working in small businesses
Wow.
in the state. And so all of those increase its risk. But no, I think it would be nice to have you speak with other elected officials in Ocean County to help them recognize this. And at the meeting up at Monmouth, a speaker from Delaware talked about the high percentage of new development within the floodplain in Ocean County actually being promoted by many municipalities. So there are several decisions that are not being well made collectively.
Yeah, I would love to share this with them if you're able to put me in touch. That'd be great.
I'll see what I can do.
Thank you.
But thank you again. It's very provocative.
I'm gonna put my my email in here for those people who may be more shy, but might have questions or want us to come present this data somewhere. Well, thank you. I totally appreciate everything you're working on. It's really incredible work. And I love tuning into all these New Jersey meetings and seeing so many people.
Thanks.
Thank you, Amy. That was great. Nick, do you want to?
All set. Thank you.
Okay, so Laura, I think that brings us to our partner updates.
Yes. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Nick, for sharing all of that information. We are going to move into partner updates, and we had a few volunteers, so we're going to start with them, and then if there's time, we can, if there's anybody else that wants to share anything, we will invite them to, if there's time, like I said. So first, fortunately, Lisa Avachal did want to speak about the state rate development plan, I believe. So Lisa, I've got your slide, or no, not slides. Some people have slides. Lisa, you can come off mute.
Yep, can everyone hear me?
There you are, yep.
All right, so yep, as Laura said, I'm gonna just give a brief update on the state development and redevelopment plan. Before I get into the update on the document itself, I kind of want to talk about the outreach that we have been doing. Since last October, we had held 8 webinars, and we had focused on each of the webinars on one of the state planning goals. We got some good feedback there, but we realized that it wasn't enough. So we decided to also do a second outreach phase where we hit up one outreach in North Jersey, Central Jersey, and South Jersey. Our first one was held at the Baptist Temple in Robbinsville. We thought the event went really well, and we received positive feedback from the participants. The Robbinsville Council President and the community development official from the township attended the meeting. Attendees there felt the township president was really important and that they were there to hear their concerns. We held a second session in Millville in April. The conversation there centered on the unique issues that affect South Jersey. So that was more about the inability of South Jersey to grow economically due to the significant environmental challenges they faced. And again, we were just really there to hear what the public had to say. We weren't really looking for solutions, but more how we can impact this into our state plan. And then our third one, we held at the William Patterson University, and that was also in April. And here we heard that there was discussion centered on lack of fresh food, the warehousing impacts that they're facing, and the lack of reliable public transportation. At this session, we had many college-age students attend, which from previous sessions that demographic was lacking. So we were glad that we got that one. Our executive director, Donna Rendero, presented at the Smart Growth Summit on the state plan update. That had approximately 200 people in the audience, and it was hosted by the National Smart Growth Center at the University of Maryland. Along with that, we've also been meeting with the Atlantic County mayors. We had a meeting with Port Authority of New York, New Jersey, and we talked about freight-related issues and discussed how the state plan will be addressing warehouse siting. We met with Morris County Planning Board, and we also been holding webinars with the Association of Counties. 2 weeks ago, we had a session at the New Jersey Planning and Redevelopment Conference. That panel we had consisted of Donna Rendero, along with our consultants who have been helping us with the plan. And we also had a representative from the governor's office sit on the panel as well. The session was very well attended with standing room only. We had a really good conversation there as well. And now to quickly go into the plan update itself. Unfortunately, I don't have as much of an update as a lot of people are hoping for. We're still waiting on state agencies' comment on the preliminary plan document. And because we're still waiting, the presentation to the commission for approval of the preliminary plan has been delayed. Right now, we do not have a timeline, unfortunately, but once we do have a certainty on the schedule, we're going to be updating our commissioners, the counties, and the public. Once the preliminary plan is approved by the State Planning Commission, our office will be holding or hosting public meetings in all 21 counties, and that happens 45 days of release of the document and before 90 days are up. Once the preliminary plan is also out, that starts the 90-day comment period for everyone. However, while that has been delayed, we are continuing discussions on the mapping part of the preliminary plan, and I know that's where a lot of people focus their comments on. We're focusing on mapping in 2 ways. The first one is the one that has to be dealt with during cross-acceptance. And cross-acceptance is the process in which the counties and municipalities agree or disagree with what's in the preliminary plan, and that's how we get their comments. We're utilizing a software called Survey 123, which is an online mapping tool developed by Esri. That's going to help the counties gain the comments they need on the map. The counties and municipalities will be able to draw their boundaries, and the counties will be taking all that data and analyzing it and then sending our office, here are all of our proposed map changes on the state plan policy map. So, and that's going to happen during cross-acceptance. But we're trying to do the preliminary work now. So when the preliminary plan does drop, we have all of that started. We also have our own mapping consultant who is Rowan University's GeoLab. So that's John Hassey and Katrina McCarthy. We're working on developing a mapping suitability protocol document. And what this document is going to be is an initial screening tool that will be utilized to help municipalities know if an area in New Jersey is suitable for development, redevelopment, or conservation. Right now, it's very draft and we're still getting a lot of comments. But I want to make clear that this protocol will not be part of the state plan policy map. It is its own thing. It will show up in the state plan, but it's going to be in the appendix. We also want to be clear that my office has no regulatory action. So what we are producing here is all just recommendations. Outside of all of that, we have 5 Rutgers Blasting Intern Tour, helping the counties get ready for cross acceptance. They've been really pinnacle in helping the counties move forward with everything that's going on. And lastly, we're open to speak to anybody that's willing to hear us about the state plan. So let us know if you want to come out to your location, and we will do a bigger presentation than what I'm doing this like 2-3 minutes, but just let us know. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I think originally I did say 2 or 3 minutes. I think we may have gone a little bit over, but we had a little extra time, which is good. And this is obviously super important. Does anybody have any questions for Lisa about the redevelopment plan? You can always put them in the chat after. Lost my participant list, so I may not be seeing a hand. All right, I'm going to say probably not then. Thank you, Lisa. We're going to move on to Nick Brown, who has an update. I'm going to pull up your slide.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Laura. So I'm going to chat briefly about the white paper that recently came out from the American Shore and Beach Preservation Association Science and Technology Committee. This white paper covered or was focused on the U.S. coastal marsh restoration and the role of sediment placement. So this includes marsh creation, thin layer placement, marsh enhancement, whatever terminology you want to use, taking sediment out of waterways and putting it onto marshes to increase the elevation. This paper focused on the importance of ecosystem services in the marshes, why they're important for storm protection, recreation, and especially habitat. In New Jersey, we often have our habitat with threatened and endangered species that the marshes are really important to. We cover the restoration with beneficial use of dredge material and layer placement, some best practices there. We highlight the literature that the Army Corps recently came out with on thin layer placement guidance and overall processes that you should follow when going through this. The regional marsh descriptions are given for every region in the country. We go from the Northeast to the Mid-Atlantic, and then Southeast, Gulf, California, and then we have the non-contiguous US with Alaska, Hawaii, and Puerto Rico included. And in these descriptions, we cover, different types of vegetation, different species that it's critical to, other cultural importance. And then there's a few examples of marsh restoration projects in each of these sections. So we try and highlight different ways that marshes are being restored within these areas. And then it ends up coming to the end with our best management practices and talking about how these projects are actually formed, things that you need to pay attention to. And really this paper serves as a guide for coastal managers to understand the process of how marsh restoration projects should be formed and how you go through the process of actually building your project. And then it also includes some adaptive management information on how you should execute your project through the end. So the goal ultimately is to educate coastal managers as opposed to the scientists who do this all the time, which is why this is a white paper. So I linked it in the chat, and there's a QR code up there. Laura and I were co-authors on this paper, and it has a ton of information. If you have any questions or comments about it, please don't hesitate to email me. My email is on the paper, and then otherwise, that's all. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you, Nick. We are going to move right along and ask Ross Kushner from New Jersey Coastal Alliance to give his update.
Yeah, Ross Kushner, New Jersey Coastal Alliance. As most of you know, we tend to concentrate on beach replenishment and particularly the impacts, mostly negative, that we're seeing from that. The documents I put out there for this are an exchange of letters we have with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, where we're seeing negative biological impacts, particularly we felt on the endangered piping plover. And what we heard back from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service was, yeah, you're not crazy. They're seeing more and more nesting success concentrated on less and less ground. And that's the opposite that you want to see with a rare species. So less success on replenished beaches, not more success on unreplenished beaches, but because you eliminated the other nesting sites, it's become more and more concentrated there. And the reason I'm raising this as an issue of something we're working on is I would love to exploit the resources in this collaborative on an issue like that. I mean, you have the New Jersey Audubon Society. I know you have a new member here, which is the Atlantic Coast Joint Venture, which is a part of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service that's specifically concentrated on coastal bird conservation and their habitat. But every time I try and do that here, I'm told that I'm being disruptive, or I'm off topic. Now I was approached by a citizens group in Long Beach Island who have a range of concerns: safety concerns, recreational concerns, surfing, fishing, and cost concerns. And they're looking to find alternatives. And unfortunately, because this issue is not being discussed here, is not being reviewed here, you have very little to offer. Even the mayor of Toms River is looking for alternatives to beach replenishment to benefit his community. And again, that's exactly what this collaborative should be focused on, but it's not. So I just wanted to take this as an opportunity with open arms to say, I'm looking to do exactly what this group is designed to do, which is exploit the firepower of its members towards coastal resilience issues. And as you know, beach replenishment is the biggest, most extensive, most expensive, and only coastal resilience project being done on the entire Atlantic coast of New Jersey. So without taking up any more time, I'll end it there.
Thank you, Ross. And I don't know if you want to drop your email in the chat. People can get in touch with you if it's something that they want to discuss further. Next up is Lisa Auermuller from the New Jersey Climate Change Resource Center. You want to come off mute?
Sure. Yep. Thank you so much, Laura. I am just here to provide a quick staffing update from the Climate Change Resource Center. For those of you that have known Jean Erb for a while, she is retiring from Rutgers at the end of this month, and effective June 1st. Her position has been taken over by Lucas Markson. So he will now be co-director of the New Jersey Climate Change Resource Center, and then is also the director of Jean's group at the Blaustein School, the policy group there. I will drop Lucas's email into the chat. He does have a new email at Rutgers because he did change schools within Rutgers, and he will be joining these meetings as a member, and I will be serving on the board of directors as a member. Thanks so much. That's it, Laura.
Awesome. Thank you, Lisa. And we will look at, maybe Lucas will be joining us at some future meetings. Mitch Hartley is up next. Mitch, I believe I have your slides for you.
Oh, right on. Thank you. Thanks, Laura. Yeah, I wanted to just update you about a couple documents that have come out of our science and planning shop recently from the Atlantic Coast Joint Venture. The first one, which is what's on the slide, is the salt marsh restoration priorities for salt marsh sparrow, and that's a New Jersey-based document. We've done them for all the states in the breeding range, but they were recently updated and kind of completely revised. If you go to the next slide, there's each of the, there was a process that involved a lot of partners statewide that kind of prioritized these marshes for salt marsh sparrows. And then if you go to the next slide, for each of the marshes that's in the document, there's, information and about existing conditions and sort of management strategies that may be, this isn't, for those of you who aren't familiar with the document, it's not like these marshes have all been exhaustively studied and monitored and are sort of ready for designs. This is more of a high level, high level sort of, these are low hanging fruit and good places to start and look at. And some of these, for New Jersey are large complexes. So there could be 20 different projects within some of these marsh complexes that could be done over time. So it's really just kind of meant to be a starting point. When we first started doing a lot of salt marsh stuff, a lot of our state partners were like, well, where do we start? Like, what should we be doing? Where should we be working? And so this was kind of the original version of this document was meant to be just to give people some kind of starting point. And I think this updated version 2.0 gives them a bit more to go on, and it's certainly more nicely formatted. The other thing I just wanted to mention real quick, which I don't know how many people it will apply to, but on our website, we also have a new document. I didn't put that on the slide because I wasn't sure it was done, but it is done and I found it. But we have a new document on monitoring for salt marsh sparrows, monitoring the effects of salt marsh restoration on salt marsh sparrows. So if anyone is doing restoration work and they're specifically interested in understanding how that work might benefit salt marsh sparrows, there's this document. It's like a 10-page document, I think, and it's just focused on, here's the standard procedures. This was developed with all the salt marsh habitat avian research program folks, the SHARP folks, academics from around the region. And it's just kind of a consensus on, here's the kind of monitoring you should do if you can, to understand, before and after effects or comparisons to a baseline or whatever. So those who might be interested in monitoring salt marsh sparrows, specifically with restoration impacts in mind, that's another fairly new document. I think it came out in the last month or two, but since this group has met last, both of these documents are new and on our website. So if anyone has any questions, they can reach out to me or go to acjv.org, and our contact info is there as well. I'll put that link in the the browser as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mitch. And I think that was all we have time for, unfortunately. So I'm just going to say we will obviously be following up with minutes from the meeting. We'll have all the links from that were included today. And thank you all for being here. Definitely look for more information coming to you about 2025 events and planning 2025 events. Again, if any of you want to join any of the work groups, you should reach out to us. I saw a couple in the chat. And if you have ideas for work groups that you think want to bring people around, we can help survey people for that. And anything I'm missing, Tom, coming up? We've got big changes with the board of directors coming next.
Yes. So, no, that's great. Thank you all for hanging in there. And we're only 1 minute over, so that's an achievement in its own, first for us. So, but no, thank you everyone for joining us. And we're always available if you have any questions or need anything from us. So please reach out at any time, and we'll be back in contact.
Yep. Thanks so much, everyone.